Good evening. We gather here to delve into a dark and disturbing chapter of American criminal history, the case of Henry Lee Lucas. His name evokes a chilling sense of dread, a name synonymous with mass murder and a labyrinth of conflicting testimonies. The story of Henry Lee Lucas is not merely a chronicle of violence, but a complex examination of societal failures, investigative shortcomings, and the profound psychological depths of a man who claimed to have taken hundreds of lives. Henry Lee Lucas's life began in 1936 in Blacksburg, Virginia, amidst poverty and abuse. His childhood was a harrowing experience, marked by physical and emotional torment at the hands of his alcoholic and abusive mother. This early exposure to violence and instability undoubtedly shaped his troubled psyche. He was a known petty criminal from a young age, with a history of arrests for theft and assault. In 1960, he committed his first documented murder, killing his mother. This act, driven by rage and a long simmering resentment, would foreshadow the horrific trajectory of his later life. He was sentenced to prison, but was released on parole in 1970. Following his release, Lucas drifted through the American South, engaging in a series of petty crimes. In 1983, he was arrested in Texas for the murder of an elderly woman, Kate Rich. It was after this arrest that the floodgates of confession opened. Lucas began to confess to a staggering number of murders, initially claiming dozens, then hundreds. He painted a picture of a life spent crisscrossing the country, leaving a trail of bodies in his wake. He also spoke of a Confederation of Killers, a supposed network of individuals involved in these heinous crimes, with Otis Toole as his partner. Toole, a man with a similarly troubled past, became a central figure in Lucas's narrative. The sheer volume of his confessions, the geographical spread of the alleged crimes, and the often graphic details he provided captivated the media and law enforcement. He was a master storyteller, weaving tales of brutality that seemed to confirm the worst fears of a nation gripped by anxiety. The sheer number of confessions created an unprecedented challenge for law enforcement. The Texas Rangers formed the Lucas Task Force, attempting to verify his claims and close numerous unsolved cases. However, the investigation quickly descended into chaos. Lucas was often taken to crime scenes, where he would provide details that were sometimes accurate, sometimes vague, and sometimes demonstrably false. He was given preferential treatment, including access to food and cigarettes, which critics argued incentivized him to confess. The pressure to close cases, coupled with the lack of physical evidence in many instances, led to a dangerous reliance on Lucas's unreliable testimony. Many investigators, eager to solve cold cases, accepted his confessions at face value, without rigorous scrutiny. This resulted in the closure of numerous cases based solely on Lucas's words, raising serious questions about the integrity of the investigations. As the investigation progressed, doubts began to surface. Forensic evidence often contradicted Lucas's claims. Travel logs and timelines proved impossible. In many instances, he could not provide specific details that only the true killer would know. Journalists and independent investigators began to expose the inconsistencies in his confessions. It became clear that Lucas was a pathological liar, capable of fabricating elaborate stories to gain attention and manipulate those around him. In the late 1980s, Lucas began to recant many of his confessions, claiming that he had been pressured by law enforcement to confess to crimes he did not commit. He admitted to lying about the Confederation of Killers and his role in hundreds of murders. He stated that he had only committed a few murders, including that of his mother and Kate Rich. The recantations further complicated the already convoluted case, leaving a trail of unanswered questions and unresolved investigations. Henry Lee Lucas died in prison in 2001. His legacy is one of confusion, controversy, and profound societal implications. The case highlights the dangers of relying on confessions alone, particularly in the absence of corroborating evidence. It exposed the flaws in the criminal justice system, the pressures on law enforcement to close cases, and the vulnerability of victims' families seeking closure. The Lucas case also raises questions about the nature of evil, the psychological motivations of serial killers, and the societal factors that contribute to violence. While the exact number of murders he committed may never be known, it is clear that he was a dangerous and manipulative individual. His case serves as a cautionary tale, reminding us of the importance of critical thinking, thorough investigation, and the pursuit of truth in the face of overwhelming complexity. Beyond the surface of his horrific actions, understanding Henry Lee Lucas's psychological profile is crucial. Experts have debated the extent to which his childhood trauma, including severe abuse and neglect, contributed to his later violent behavior. His mother's influence, marked by both physical brutality and a twisted form of affection, likely played a significant role in shaping his distorted view of relationships and violence. Some psychologists suggest that Lucas exhibited traits of antisocial personality disorder, characterized by a lack of empathy, manipulative behavior, and a disregard for the rights of others. His ability to fabricate elaborate stories and manipulate those around him speaks to a deep-seated need for attention and control. It's also worth considering the potential impact of his intellectual limitations. While not definitively diagnosed with intellectual disability, his cognitive abilities were questioned, potentially influencing his susceptibility to suggestion and his difficulty in distinguishing between reality and fantasy. The psychological puzzle of Henry Lee Lucas is a complex one, a blend of environmental factors, potential personality disorders, and the enduring scars of childhood trauma. The media played a pivotal role in shaping public perception of Henry Lee Lucas. The sheer volume of his confessions and the sensational nature of his alleged crimes captivated the nation. Newspapers and television broadcasts were filled with stories of his supposed cross-country killing spree, fueling public fear and anxiety. The media's focus on the graphic details of his confessions, often without critical analysis, contributed to a distorted image of Lucas as a prolific and unstoppable killer. The pressure to solve unsolved cases, coupled with the public's demand for answers, created an environment where law enforcement was susceptible to accepting Lucas's unreliable testimony. The media's portrayal of Lucas as a monstrous figure, while understandable given the nature of his alleged crimes, also obscured the complexities of his case and the systemic failures that contributed to the investigative chaos. Furthermore, the media's focus on the scale of the alleged murders overshadowed the individual victims and the devastating impact on their families. The rush to close cases and satisfy public demand often overshadowed the pursuit of true justice. The Henry Lee Lucas case left a trail of emotional devastation in its wake, particularly for the families of the victims. For many, his confessions offered a glimmer of hope, a potential answer to the questions that had haunted them for years. However, the subsequent recantations and the doubts surrounding his claims left them in a state of limbo, adding to their grief and uncertainty. The closure that they had sought was snatched away, replaced by a renewed sense of loss and frustration. The families of those whose cases were falsely attributed to Lucas faced a unique form of trauma. They were forced to grapple with the possibility that their loved ones' murders might never be solved, their memories tarnished by the lies of a manipulative individual. The Lucas case underscores the importance of sensitivity and thoroughness in dealing with victims' families, particularly in cases involving multiple victims and complex investigations. The need for accurate information and genuine closure is paramount, and the pursuit of justice must never be compromised by the pressure to close cases quickly or at any cost. The story of Henry Lee Lucas is a dark and unsettling one. It is a story that forces us to confront the uncomfortable realities of human nature and the imperfections of our justice system. While many questions remain unanswered, the lessons learned from this case are invaluable. We must strive for a system that prioritizes truth, justice, and the protection of innocent lives. The legacy of Henry Lee Lucas serves as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of unchecked violence and the importance of vigilance in the pursuit of justice.